Please have a seat. When I was in high school, my friends and I had one goal: to win the state championship in football. That was it. That's all we wanted to do. We knew it was going to take some hard work. We knew that we'd have to do more in our senior year than we had done in our junior year. Now, our junior year, we had a pretty good season. We were 8-3, pretty respectable. But we didn't make the playoffs because ours was a small conference. So we didn't get to go. We sat at home. Our senior year rolled around and we swore up and down it wouldn't happen again that way. And so for the first 7 games, we were perfect, 7-0, until we got to the 8th game where we played a rival from about an hour away in the Mississippi Delta. It was number 1 versus number 2 in our conference, 2 titans on the gridiron. We knew, and they knew, that this would be the most important game of the year for both of us. We knew, and they knew, that how we played this game would have direct implication on whether or not we went to the playoffs. You see, that year there were 3 teams that were equally as good. All 3 of us were battling it out. All 3 of us knew that we had to do our best to be one of the 2 teams chosen for the playoffs. Now, we played that game hard. In fact, we left everything that we had out on that football field, but alas, we came up short. 29-27. The other guys won. But there was still hope. You see, in my conference, there was this bizarre tiebreaker rule. If everybody in the conference, the top 3 teams, had all lost a game, then it would be decided by least defensive points allowed. I don't know who comes up with this stuff, but I knew that that rule existed. That tiebreaker rule was there. And so every game for the remainder of our schedule, we fought to pitch a shutout, and we did. Until that last game versus the other piece of the 3-way tie for 3rd place. We knew that we would have to hold them scoreless, and we knew that they had the best offense in the state of Mississippi. We had our work cut out for us. And we went into that game fired up and ready to play. And we played 3 long, hard quarters of football where we held them scoreless. But you see, a football game takes 4 quarters. And in that last quarter, we began to get tired and wear out. And all we could say in the huddle on defense was, "Don't forget, guys, the tiebreaker rule." We knew if they scored anything more than a field goal, our hopes of state championship were dashed. But our defense held strong. We held strong until the last drive of the last minute of the 4th quarter. Our offense moved the ball well until that last drive of that last minute of the 4th quarter, and we decided it was safer to punt than to go for it. And our long snapper, bless his heart, threw the football 7 feet over the punter's head, and it rolled straight for the end zone. Now, none of us were smart enough to realize if we'd have just picked up that ball and run out the back of the end zone, the 2 points from the safety wouldn't have hurt us. But instead, we dove on the ball at the 1-yard line and then held our nemesis for 4 straight plays. But on that 4th play, a penalty allowed them a 5th, and they scored. our playoff hopes were dashed. But we won the game. We finished the season 10-1. But for some reason, all any of us cared about on that particular day was a silly tiebreaker rule set up by God knows who in some committee room about a conference football schedule. Tiebreaker rules are tough. And I thought about that a lot this week when we started talking about Jesus meeting the Sadducees in Luke's gospel today. Jesus spends a lot of time in this particular gospel being with his opponents. You know, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the chief priests. You've heard all about it. And often in this gospel, the debate is lively. You see, each one of these groups had their own sets of tiebreaker rules that they cared deeply about. The chief priests were concerned with the relationship between church and state. So they're the ones that always ask the question in Luke's gospel about, hey, Jesus, what about paying taxes? The Pharisees were really concerned about ritual observance and keeping the Sabbath. So they're the ones that always ask him, hey, Jesus, what about a guy who brings his mule to water on the Sabbath day? And the Sadducees, as Luke's gospel says, those that don't believe in the resurrection, decided to ask a ridiculous hypothetical question about what if we need a tiebreaker rule. You see, there were 7 brothers, and there was this obscure deuterocanonical law, you like that fancy word, that said if a brother died, the other brother had a responsibility to marry the widow in order to make the family continue to work. So the Sadducees decided this was a perfect opportunity to see what Jesus thought about tiebreaker rules in regard to the resurrection. So they say, hey, Jesus, if there is a resurrection, what's going to happen to these 7 brothers? I always wonder and wonder if Jesus maybe would have said something about, you think the brothers would have caught on that as they married the wife, they keep dying. But they didn't. Instead, they focus on that little rule, that little thing that says, who gets the wife in the resurrection? Nitpicky detail. What Jesus says to them is, in effect, that grand old saying that says, hey, guys, don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all small stuff. Jesus says to the Sadducees and to us that he is the God of the living. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. For to him, all are alive. Don't sweat the small stuff, because at the root of our faith is that notion that God is God of all, and we are a part of that, no exception. I am the God of the living, says Jesus. It brings great light to that wonderful little phrase that Paul shared with the church in Rome in the 14th chapter of the letter to the Romans, where he says, if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's. It's pretty important theology for us. That we are God's possession, that we are God's people, and that nothing can take that away from us. At the very core of our being as faithful people, we are resurrection people. And that has as much to do with life on life's terms as it does to what happens when we die. Resurrection means victory over death. It means redemption, forgiveness, healing, and wholeness. It means not paying attention to some petty little tiebreaker rule, but remembering the 10 games that you won, and even the one you lost, that made up an incredible season of life. You see, resurrection is about paying attention to life and life abundant. Ups and downs, peaks and valleys, disappointments and victories. I don't know about you guys, but there have been times in my life when I felt like I was dying inside because of life's circumstances. I felt like there was nothing in this world that could save me from the pain or the experience that I was having. I missed something. I lost something. Something didn't go my way. I felt destroyed. I felt dead. And most of the time, it's in those moments when the light of Christ broke through to show me what real resurrection is all about. Hope, peace, understanding, forgiveness, healing, reconciliation. I am the God of the living, says Jesus. And to me, all are alive. Our boldest claim as people of Christ, our boldest claim as faithful people is that nothing can separate us from the love of God. Death can't, and life can't. Nothing can keep us from that powerful peace that passes all understanding, no matter how dark the valley around us may seem. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because you are with me. The God of the living, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Rebekah, Rachel, and Sarah, the God of our forefathers and foremothers, our ancestors, the people who paved the way for us in faith. Resurrection people. People of redemption, people of reconciliation, people of healing and wholeness. We're not people of the tiebreaker rule, y'all. We're people of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're people of the bold claim that death doesn't get a last word for us. That life on life's terms is not the end of our existence, but the beginning of a new day. Death can't, and life can't. This is our gospel. This is our good news. In the words of Ellis Boyd Redding, read from the Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying. We are people of life. In the words of Jesus, I came so that you might have life and to have it more abundantly. At my funeral and yours, we will gather together as the people of God and make a very, very bold claim. We will say that even at the grave, our Alleluia is sung loud and clear. We will say that even in the midst of darkness, there is light. We will say that Jesus gets the last word. Our burials, to call them memorial services, would do a great injustice to our theology of resurrection. Because we don't just remember, we proclaim. We proclaim life and life abundant. We celebrate life on earth, and we celebrate being a people of resurrection, an Easter people, a people who say, for all of our gifts, may God's name be praised, the living God, because to him, all of us are alive, and in him, all of us are alive. Amen.